Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to another Planet FPL Clash of the Correspondents. And we've got second on this week, facing third from bottom. Firstly, it's a Clash of the Correspondents debut for our Leicester City correspondent, Sam Martin. How are you, Sam?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you, mate. And our Arsenal correspondent, no booing at the back, Adam Pritchard is in. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing good, thanks, James.
Good stuff. Sam, how we feeling about the Foxes at the moment? You had the uplift of the victory at my place, and there was a glimmer of something, and then a bit of a disaster at Goodison Park, mate.
Yeah, it was. I think after the Fulham game, before we played you boys, it was probably a case of right, that's us done. That we're genuinely horrendous. Then we went to your place, won, and it was. You know what? Actually, it's not all that bad. Yeah, the bit of belief, and we go and concede 2 goals in 7 minutes at Goodison Park, and genuinely horrendous football. And then we kind of back to being where we were, and then we went to Old Trafford and played against a poor United side, and probably the better side for most of the game. So we got a little bit unlucky with, well, I say a little bit unlucky. We got very unlucky with the goal. Um, so I'm unsure. I was going to say Arsenal's probably not the side you want to play at this time when you're really struggling, but obviously given the news, and I'll let Adam sort of touch on that more. Maybe now's as good a time as ever to play Arsenal, I guess.
It might be. I've got some bad news to you on the two recent displays against Tottenham and Manchester United, Sam. Those two teams might give you a little bit of a candle of light to make you feel like things are going okay sometimes. And I think there's a number of other clubs in this league can testify to that playing those two teams this season. But you did deserve to win at White Hart Lane. And I watched all the game Friday night, and it was a period in early in the second half where you settled, you were playing all the football, looked in complete control. And then United started smashing it down the wing for Garnacho, and he was running in behind you, and then you could feel the fear creeping.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've we've sort of been a side that's not really known in what third of the pitch they really want to play. We've lacked goals up front, and we've lacked any sort of creative talent up front. And we've also not been very good defensively, which is um, not too good areas of the pitch you want to be bad at. But in the middle of the park, we have in spells been okay. And I thought with Ndidi back on Friday night, I thought we actually certainly till he went off, we looked really good and really solid. Um, Garnacho coming out and changed the game, of course. My biggest fear is just that lack of goals, and we really do look sort of unable to score goals and win games. And that sort of coupled with the fact that we really struggle to keep a clean sheet means, if you've got to score 2 goals, 3 goals to pick up points, and you're then struggling to score goals, you're in a bit of a rough position.
Adam, Sam said it might be a good time to play Arsenal. Is it?
Um, I think he was kind of right in terms of when he said there's probably not been a better time this season to play us. Like obviously we've been able to go away for some warm weather training that last season kind of reinvigorated the campaign a little bit. I think if memory serves me correctly, the game after we came back from Dubai around this time last year, we won 5-0 at home to Palace, I think. I think that was the game. So kind of bodes well from that regard. But I mean, what players have we got to kind of be refreshed at this point is the bigger question. Obviously, the Havertz news earlier today that he's going to be out for the rest of the season kind of comes off the back of Martinelli being out for probably likely 6 weeks, I would guess. I think they're kind of trying to soften the blow with the kind of timelines of him being out for around 4 weeks because there's building anger, and there kind of has been building anger, I would say, amongst Arsenal fans about the lack of activity in the recent transfer window. So, yeah, can two injuries that couldn't have come in a worse part of the pitch at a worse time for us, really.
So you're not coming back from this reinvigorated. You're coming back weaker, aren't you?
The players that are fit, and there aren't as many of them left, are should hopefully come back reinvigorated. But yeah, on the whole, I think it's been a very, very rough, well, been a very, very rough few days for us, really.
For those who haven't seen, obviously the news is that Kai Havertz is highly likely to miss the rest of the season with a hamstring injury. How important is he, Adam? He's been kind of much maligned by even Arsenal fans quite often. I think even particularly recently, using him as kind of a hold up for a reason why Arsenal need a goal scoring number nine. But he offers the team a lot in different ways, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's so energetic. Like he's often, if Odegaard or when, especially when Odegaard was out, he was the trigger for a lot of the pressing we were doing. And even with Odegaard there, he's kind of almost splitting the pitch with him. So sometimes they almost look like they're lined up as two strikers, when we're out of possession, especially trying to press the back line. And yeah, he just offers so much off the ball, and his physical presence on the ball offers a great outlet, from kind of David Raya long passes from the back. And yeah, I think the bigger issue, although obviously Arsenal did need a goal scorer, I don't necessarily think saying that Arsenal 100% needed a world-class striker was always the right way to kind of channel that need in the squad, because you saw last season when Saka was fit, and when Trossard and Martinelli were kind of on form, Havertz was able to both create for them and score goals that were created for them. It's been the creation that has obviously been a big issue, and I just think, especially without Saka, that lack of creativity has kind of exposed his, let's say, finishing inconsistencies even more. Because every chance he gets, there's a bigger emphasis on him needing to score.
So you've raised a great point about his aerial ability, and until you'd said it, I'd not really thought about it. I was thinking a lot about his off the ball work, his pressing, his link play, but so often he's used as an outlet direct from the goalkeeper, isn't he? I'm not calling you a long ball team, but it becomes an option, doesn't it? If teams press you too hard, you can go into him. That feels off the table with whatever sits there instead now, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, totally. There's no one, even when all our players are fit, kind of Jesus, who might have been the closest person you could say that could have done that previously, is just like, since his knee injury, he's just like got nowhere near the confidence or physicality to play that role. So yeah, the lack of outlet now for us is very worrying.
I'll do you a favour. We are obviously pre-recording prior to the Merseyside derby, so I realise the result there might influence your mood a little bit. But right now, Adam, prior to that game, do you feel like you can still win the league?
Um, Can we? Yeah, like it's a possibility. The fact that we still have to go to Anfield, so to an extent, there is an element of it that is within our hands, makes me feel a little bit more optimistic. And there's a chance that kind of some of the players that are injured at the moment could be back for that game. Not obviously Havertz, but like White will probably be back for then. There's a potential Saka could be back for then. So we should be a stronger team then than we are now. I would say the likelihood has dropped though drastically. Um, and I don't necessarily think that's being particularly pessimistic. I think that's just being realistic, really.
Is that how you'd see it as a neutral, Sam?
Um, I think it depends on. I would say it's out of obviously it's out of Arsenal's hands in the fact that it's solely in Liverpool's hands, but I would say it's more Liverpool for me would have to severely drop off to be caught, as opposed to Arsenal kicking on the gears in catching them. Purely Liverpool just look like they've got that knack just of winning games at the moment. And obviously, like, inevitably they'll go and get beat tonight. But um, they just look like they can. They're in that space where you don't play amazingly well and you just win games 1-0, 2-1, 2-0. And when a side gets into that run, that's when it they can be so difficult to catch because even when they're playing badly, they still just get further and further away from you. I think without a striker and a natural goal scorer, you Arsenal are even further behind because you lose the ability to win games when you're playing badly, where someone can nick you a goal from nowhere or smash and grab and yeah. But don't get me wrong, Arsenal will go and beat Leicester 5-0 on Saturday, and someone will get a hat trick. But yeah, I would say that it's certainly Liverpool's to lose, and I think that Liverpool will probably run away with it.
I think your pessimism is absolutely accepted, Adam. I don't think you're just kind of pushing away that I don't want to say it, which you have done in the past, but this isn't the occasion. If you look at the difference in the firepower between yourselves and Liverpool offensively at the moment, there's a huge difference
Yeah.
because of the injuries and what you've got available. we can compare the teams defensively, it almost feels like Liverpool got to suffer the sort of problems that you've now got, i.e. Van Dijk, Salah, Gravenberch, something that's going to really kind of move where they've been at that makes them have to change and do something different. Because in fairness, you've had to do that a few times this year with Odegaard's absence, then Saka's absence, and now it's going to have to be something different again, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, totally. We're going to have to, like you're saying, with Odegaard being out, we had to kind of change the way we played, not just we didn't have like a plug and play replacement, and it's going to have to be that way again. And yeah, I think Liverpool. Liverpool probably no. Let me stop myself. Liverpool have been the best team in the league this season, but they have also been lucky in terms of the injuries that they've gotten, and we've just at key moments of the season repeatedly have had different players go out, so had different problems to solve. So yeah, the lineup this weekend is definitely going to be interesting, and kind of to what extent Arteta tries to just put slightly squarish pegs in slightly roundish holes, or to what extent he tries to like kind of change the way we play will definitely be interesting to see.
Okay, we'll come back on to obviously what you might do at the weekend and future weeks afterwards. Sam, how many in the relegation fight, in your opinion?
I would say, I have said it's two go down from three. Is that being slightly harsh on Southampton? Maybe. But yeah, I think it's two down from three. And if I was a Wolves fan, as if I was looking at it as a neutral, I would look at Wolves and say that they probably got the best squad and the most firepower to get out. I've always said that given how poor all of the sides down in the bottom seem to be, um, the team that stays up will probably be the team that goes on and gets the most freak results, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
A Leicester winning at White Hart Lane, it isn't a game where you're looking on paper and saying, oh, that's a game we should win, because all the sides involved in that seem to be losing those games. And I think that's probably a reflection on just how poor we are all down there. Leicester lost at home to Wolves, but then Ipswich lose at home to Southampton, and then Wolves lose at home to someone or drop points, and you seem to have weekends where you'll get games and you'll lose a game, but then everyone else loses, and you're like, oh well, we've not actually lost any ground. Um, so for me, it's those sides that can, Wolves winning against Villa, and obviously they picked up points against Chelsea as well, and it's areas like that that you think that it's going to be the team that probably gets the most of those freak results will probably stay up. In my mind, that's how I see it.
So you think Everton's safe?
Yeah, yeah, I think they're safe.
Therefore, you even think my team's safe?
Yeah, yeah, you boys are safe.
That's good to know. I mean, one aspect of bad news for you is Ipswich and Wolves have still got to play Tottenham, and you haven't, mate. That's
Well,
bad
that is
news.
very true. That is very true. It's weird because the biggest concern I have with Leicester is that we have to play. We play Ipswich at home, we play Southampton at home, but with that poor mentality wise, that I'd be concerned that those games don't become easily winnable. And there's that much toxicity around the ground. It's almost like we've neutralised the advantage of playing at home. And it probably did us a favour to go to White Hart Lane and think, oh, actually, it's like these lads have got it bad as well.
When you mention mentality there, who's responsible for that?
Um, Good question. Good question. I think there's a few reasons. I think there's not enough core leaders in the side. And they talk of, oh right, who's a big name, and if you'd have asked me 2 weeks ago, someone would have said maybe it's a Connor Cody, and then deadline day he's wanting to get out, and you're like, okay, well he's not one of the big names in the squad. Um, we've got young keepers, and I've said on here previously how good I think Hermansen is. But he's a young lad and not probably a leader as such at this moment in time. Certainly not experienced in what it takes to stay up in the Premier League. Defensively, there's probably no faith there, I would say, because none of them are very good and they keep getting dropped for one another. So how do you build a side with someone that's prepared to stand up and really be counted. As a complete caveat to that, though, I did think Friday night at United we did show that little bit more fight than I'd seen in previous weeks. And although we went out, which probably isn't the end of the world, it's an extra lot of games to keep playing in the FA Cup. If you're not going to go on and win it, it did feel a little bit like there was that fight was kind of back, which certainly was not there at Everton, and it hadn't been there at Fulham at home, and it hadn't been there at Palace at home. And I question. It'll be interesting to see on Saturday how much it means to the players and how much they can get up for a home game, especially there's set to be protests before the game. So that toxicity will be coming into the ground, and it's whether they stand up and be counted under that pressure or whether they hide away, which is probably the argument that they have done throughout the season.
Okay, lots of takeaways from that, and I'm scared I'm going to forget some. So I'm going to start with one thing. Wilfred and Diddy captain decided on Friday, right?
Yeah.
He's been missing since Van Nistelrooy's first two games against West Ham and Brighton, which you picked up 4 points in. In the 9 games since, you've only picked up 3 points, which was the 3 points at White Hart Lane. Is there a correlation? Is that your leader you've been missing, possibly?
I'd say that there probably is a correlation. How important he is, and it's probably hard. He just provides that little bit more. I'm a big fan of Winks, and I really do like Winks. Winks is a very good player when he's on the better side in the game. And he has that space, and he drops into the pockets and picks the ball up. He's struggled this year because defensively playing out from the back, we've not been very good. And when you really need a scrapper, if you like, that's probably not his game. So yes, I think indeed he probably does help that, and I think indeed he probably gets the better out of Samare as well. It probably sort of frees him up to play a bit of a role that's more suited for him. Than when he's having to do it sort of maybe a bit more so on his own. When Winks is that very much picking it up off the centre backs and trying to work it out. I would say that having Ndidi back is big for us, and I was kind of glad to see him come off at 68, sort of prearranged. And I would obviously want that focus on getting him back and playing regularly for us.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll start for you Saturday lunchtime. The protests are against who?
The protests are against the board. Sort of namely, I think it will be included in Top, the chairman, John Rudkin, who's the director of football. They might go after Susan Whelan as well, but it will probably be Top and John Rudkin, the director of football.
The family in charge now, are they still some of Visha's family? Am I right in saying that? So is that quite uncomfortable?
To an extent. I think it was always, it's obviously a heartbreaking time for the club, and even more heartbreaking for the family. We were affected as fans, but it wasn't sort of at the same level, obviously. Whether he wanted to take it on or whether he took it on in memory of his dad as that sort of legacy, I don't know personally. Obviously, he will know the answer to that. But I think over the last sort of 5-6 years, we've made some really bad sort of decisions. From a management point of view, we've been stagnant. And we got burnt with the relegation. Well, it goes back further than that, but say if we got burnt with the relegation, and then to get back up and be so passive, in the fact that we look like we're going down again. I think the biggest issue though is just a complete lack of accountability. No one willing to say, look, we've made mistakes here. This is what the club's plan is, and I feel sorry for Van Nistelrooy because he's the one that ends up taking these questions, and he's the one who's being asked about transfers. And, at the start of the window, it was very much a case of, we're keen to bring players in, and we know the squad's not good enough. And then we don't spend any money in the transfer. Well, we signed a right back who is unable to get in ahead of Justin, who's on form, probably the worst right back in the league. So you kind of look at that and think, well, we must be doing something wrong. Why is no one telling us actually what the plan is? Because if they'd have come out and said, this is the state of the finances, we have no money. It's backs to the wall. Then at least you can understand, and then you're in control of sort of the narrative. Whereas the fact that there is no accountability and there is no sort of correspondence, it's very much a case of it allows this negativity to build and build, and people grow restless. And then, unfortunately, when the players don't back it up, if you're winning games and stuff, it becomes a little bit easier to swallow. But when you people spend a lot of money and go and watch and stuff like that, and then they see that, and then it becomes bad.
Adam, it might be a good time to play Leicester.
Oh, it's always a
I
good
think
time
it
to play
might
Leicester.
be. I think it might be. At least they've got a director of football to complain against. We still haven't got one yet, so every time.
Any update on that?
Not that I've seen. I think they're probably, well, obviously now it probably makes sense to wait until the summer. But yeah, I think that's probably part of why things over January proved a little bit more tricky than the most Arsenal fans would have wanted.
Is there real blame against that you didn't? He's captain hindsight now. Havertz and Martinelli have got injured. We knew you wanted some, but my argument was very much that Arsenal would be better off spending 80, 90 million on a forward in the summer rather than 40, 50 now and kind of plugging it and then stopping yourself from buying the bigger one in the summer. Obviously, now it looks like, okay, you should have done something. Is there blame amongst the Arsenal fan base attached to anyone here?
Um, yes, I think obviously it depends who you speak to. I think there are certain people who are already having frustrations around how we're playing, who put the blame on Arteta and say, "Oh, Arteta doesn't want to spend money." We've shown in the past that we're willing to spend big money. We've done it on Rice, Havertz, for example. So clearly the money's there. He just doesn't want to spend it. Should have gone and got Watkins because obviously those rumors were very strong late in the window. Um, and then there are people probably who are kind of naturally never really warm to the kind of KSE regime, despite the kind of work that Josh Kroenke has done over the past 5 years to try and mend that relationship that was totally broken, who are saying, oh, well, the ownership aren't supplying the money. And there's yeah, so they're sitting the blame with them. I think, to be honest, that it's probably, I mean, it's both and neither of those. I think Arteta probably doesn't want a stopgap, but I think he would have wanted something for sure. I just think what he wanted almost certainly wasn't available in January. So, you know what he's like with kind of his exacting standards on and off the pitch, that we're not just going to go and get like a 6 month loan for a random player who we haven't done like due diligence on. And I think everything we would have done would have had to be long term, just because like the way we're run from a finance perspective. So yeah, I think there's anger. I just don't think there's like one unified point or like focal point essentially for that anger at the moment.
You obviously trounced City in your last league game,
Mhm.
but as a consequence of City's,
Sorry, can you just say that again? What was
you're good, mate. Listen, can I be honest?
Everyone's doing it now. It
I
doesn't
said this
matter.
on our Patreon pod on Wednesday. We beat City by 4, and then our season fell apart, mate. So that might just happen to you, mate. So
Yeah, fair.
yeah, I wouldn't, I wouldn't go repeating it that much. But as a consequence of their underperformance this year, is that making this situation worse for Arsenal fans? In the sense, it feels like it should be you that's taken advantage of this moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the fact that it feels like we could have done, and there have been opportunity, or there have been like, if you want to say 50-50 calls, there have been 50-50 calls that haven't gone our way like 3, 4, 5 times this season that you can point to and say, oh, if all of them had have gone different, we'd be either level with Liverpool, ahead on points, whatever. People were playing those kind of counterfactuals and hypothetical scenarios out in their mind when they're thinking about it. So there is a sense of, yeah, because everyone feels like City are as ominous, or they could be as ominous next season. I think even when you look at the squad, that might not be the case, but there is a sense that this was the year to do it. And yeah, the chances, if it's not already slipped through our fingers, it's kind of getting very close to.
And ultimately, it's draws that's possibly going to cost you.
Yeah,
Fulham, yeah, late goal that obviously didn't count at the end was so marginally offside. Everton at home, 0-0. The Brighton controversial penalty, obviously, but the game was in your grasp. Obviously, two up against Villa is almost the biggest one, really,
yeah,
to
yeah,
sit.
and people will point to the Brighton at home game with the sending off, the City game, obviously, the Bournemouth away game where even though we weren't great, Saliba gets sent off for a kind of a bit of a nothing decision,
So
really.
is it only when you play Newcastle you haven't got excuses?
I could probably come up with some if you want me to think of some.
God,
It's very cold up
do you want me
north
to ask
tonight.
Sam a question? Give you a minute to think of something.
Well, I could say over the two cup ties, we did actually outperform them on XG 4.3 something to, but I won't
It's
say that.
true.
Just
It's
letting you
true.
know, I could say
It's true. I've seen that. I'm not letting you fucking have it. No.
that.
As a neutral, Adam, how do you see the bottom of the table? Is Sam right? Is it Southampton probably gone? They're 10 from safety, and are sort of Everton, West Ham, Tottenham safe enough in your eyes now, are
Yeah, begrudgingly, I think Tottenham are probably safe enough. I don't think I ever really believed, I wouldn't allow myself to believe it was much of a possibility. Yeah, Everton they've got a game in hand over Wolves and they're seven clear, so I think they should be fine. Really, when you look at the squad, and especially when you look at the kind of reliability of the forward line, Wolves should, on paper, certainly, they shouldn't really be this close if we're being honest. I think maybe the kind of new manager bounce hasn't lasted quite as long as I think certainly people would have expected. But then again, I suppose Leicester have kind of had a similar situation, and it almost feels to me like Leicester have got their season the wrong way round. Like you want to start if you were going to have to sack a manager, you'd almost want to start with the kind of inexperienced, unproven manager at the beginning of the season, then realize, oh God, we've got this wrong. Go to the kind of more experienced Premier League practitioner. And obviously, I realize it didn't work out with Cooper for various reasons that Sam obviously knows better than I do. But I feel like you don't want to take a punt when you already think you're in trouble. I just think it was the wrong appointment to be honest, and definitely didn't come at the right time. So yeah, I think Leicester. I think they'll probably go down. Unfortunately, Wolves should have too much.
Sam, that feels like a valid analysis from Adam on the Cooper Van Nistelrooy kind of. Yeah, I get what Adam's saying. Yeah, ordinarily it would be, yeah, Cooper come in and kind of keep us up. I get that. How do you reflect on that now? And is that a fair point?
Yeah, I think it's certainly fair, to have that sort of analysis opinion of it. I think ultimately there's been a number of failings, and this sort of kind of dovetails back to why there are fans protesting. It won't be me personally, but it's why some people will be, and you have to respect everyone's right to have their say. Um, Cooper was a poor appointment, in my opinion, and that's probably shared amongst most Leicester fans. And I think Van Nistelrooy is also a poor appointment. Um, I think he probably wasn't first choice, and it almost, and what some Leicester fans will say is that it's as though we're preparing for another season in the Championship. And it was probably was it a sort of a decision made with a few years in mind. I wouldn't have done that. I would have gone for someone with more experience. I know they tried it with Potter again, and that one fell through again. It fell through in the summer. It fell through. Um, when we've just been recruiting. You would have to assume that they probably spoke to a Moyes as well and various people like that, and for whatever reason they fell through too. The reality is I think it could have been Pep that we appointed. The squad's not good enough to compete ultimately, and you're probably relying on, like I say, those freak results because I just genuinely don't think we're good enough to consistently and find results. You are reliant on things just going right for you on the day. Yeah, so it it'd be interesting to see what they do in terms of persisting with Van Nistelrooy, or a lot of people are saying that they think he's not got long left, and they could move on. I probably don't subscribe to that theory, but that's what the questions I get asked from neutrals. How long has he got left? When's he going to go? I think it would be wild if they, that would be, they'd have to admit they got it seriously wrong, and I think they're from what we've seen, they're not really in the position of really holding their hands up and saying, we got this really wrong. Let's bring in a Sean Dyche to try and keep us up or whatever.
I hate to say that when the appointment happened, it's nothing against him specifically. I think it's more you've just bounced from problem to problem as a football club for quite a while. When he was appointed, Adam's right. It was such a kind of movement away from Cooper, which was such a movement away from Maresca. It's like a little bit like what you're saying earlier. What's the club aiming for? What's the direction? Tell us something. I said when Van Nistelrooy was appointed, I said I really wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't last the season. Before you beat my team, there was a lot of speculation in that week that he might even resign himself.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that's going back to what you're saying in terms of those frustrations. There were people that didn't like it last season, they didn't like the style of football that we played, and found it boring and negative, and couldn't get on board that sort of super modern, high possession based football. But we at least had a style and a plan, and we were signing players that sort of suited that plan, and we played every game the same, and whether you didn't like it or you did like it, you knew at least what you were going to watch. Then Cooper came in, and again, he at least in terms of his signings, like he had no identity, and that was the biggest issue. But he signed sort of established players, albeit in hindsight they don't look the best signings. But Bobby Decker over Reed, Ayew, players that knew the league, and and then obviously, like you say, when Van Nistelrooy came in, it was kind of like, well, now what are we expecting? And obviously, it got off to a decent start with 4 points from 2 games, but his inexperience or inability, either whichever one of those words you want to use, has been really found out, and that coupled with a genuine lack of talent within the squad means he's massively under the firing line, and I think he probably regrets taking it on.
Yeah, I think that's why so many others turned it down.
Yeah,
It
for
just
sure.
almost like it did feel a bit like what was your best case scenario of a win if you took that job this year with the potential of a points deduction hanging over you, even like going back to
Yeah,
pre-season. It's like, yeah, if you're 17th here, that's like an amazing return. You came up weaker than the team that got promoted,
yeah,
which happened to
exactly.
two teams last year. The league's got to find a way to make sure that doesn't happen next year because it can't continue that way. Adam, go on then. What's the Arsenal front three at Leicester on Saturday then?
Um, so I think it's probably going to be Sterling, Trossard, and Nwaneri. I would imagine. I think that's probably the safest bet as a front three. There's a chance if kind of Arteta's faith in Sterling is as low as the Arsenal fans is, he probably won't even make the bench. But there's a chance Ødegaard could play maybe as like a false nine because he does a lot of those kind of pressing. I can see your face. You're not really believing it. I don't believe it either. But there's
No, 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 no. Actually, my face was more. I don't like it
no. I'm not.
because you're
I'm not a huge
losing a
fan either.
layer of what you are as a team. That
Yeah,
it's
and
more
that would,
that.
in my head, if Ødegaard is going to move into the front three, you'd have to bring Lewis Skelly into midfield, bring someone who can kind of carry the ball, bring like add a bit of dynamism into that central three, because otherwise we're left with kind of Rice looking like the most creative player, which like he's amazing, but that's kind of not his strong suit. There's a chance we could line up more as like a nominal 4-4-2 and have because Arteta has spoken about how Nwaneri obviously played as a striker in the youth teams and might have a future there one day, kind of loosely in press conferences. So there's a chance you could see him and Trossard maybe as like floating again, whatever. You can put a number on them. That's not what position they'll play, but floating as the most advanced two, and then maybe Sterling on the right. And again, you're looking at someone like Lewis Skelly playing probably a more defensive left mid role. But yeah, no, I think most likely it will be Sterling, Trossard, and Nwaneri as the front three.
Okay. An out the box question. I heard someone mention this today. Mikel Merino.
As a striker,
Yeah.
he can barely get in as a midfielder at the moment, so that
But
would be quite the.
he arrives in the box at the right time, doesn't he?
He does. But I mean, you could probably also say the same as Declan Rice when he's given a bit more freedom.
Yeah, I mean you wouldn't want Rice
No,
to
no.
perform that role, but I'm thinking in terms of Marino's not getting in the team anyway, and he does have facets that are kind of eerily similar to Havertz in terms of that arriving into the box actually from late.
Yeah, and he's obviously got the physicality in terms of he's very good at winning aerial duels, but I think that would be a very big surprise.
Okay, so unbelievably, you're about to play, all due respect, Sam, one of the worst teams in the league at the moment, and I'm going to start the fantasy conversation by saying, should we be buying an Arsenal 4.5 midfielder?
He's definitely on the cards for me this week. In fact, I'm almost certainly gonna get him in.
Okay. We are obviously talking about Ethan Nwaneri before you tell
Yeah.
me you're talking about Ulad Mahad, who
No,
no,
no, I'm not.
okay, fine. So I guess the he's it feels almost certain he's going to play. He's ahead. Is he ahead of Sterling in the pecking order?
Yeah, yeah, I
Right.
think
Okay.
you've seen from the way it's been used so far, he is.
Yeah, agreed. And he's an incredible talent, no doubt about it. The concern for me would be anything you buy from Arsenal now. Presumably you got an eye on the blank, the good fixtures after the blank, and at the moment he's going to go in the team on the right, isn't he?
Mhm.
So
Probably.
what about when Saka's back?
You could again, it kind of depends on, I think it depends on the timeline of Martinelli's injury as well. Like if it's the kind of more optimistic side of the 4 weeks, then we're looking at kind of significantly less options. And also, we don't really have a defined period of time for when Saka's going to be back. Like March was what was kind of speculated,
Hold on, you
either when he
told
got
me in
his,
pre-season if he's got one leg, he'll
if
play.
he's got one like he'll
Well,
play.
I
And
saw a
we've
picture
seen
from the other day and I can confirm he's still got two, mate.
he's got two. One of them does have a massive scar in it though, so
I
not
know.
looking in the best shape. So yeah, even when we're thinking about Saka coming back and it looks more optimistic because we've seen pictures of him doing some gym work, I still wouldn't think that's going to be within the next kind of month or so that he's likely to be a starting consideration. So at 4.5, I it feels like the opportunity is there for the taking. And if it turns out that Saka is back and ready to start earlier, then it looks like he's not burning a massive hole in your pocket. He's one that you can afford to bench and
No, absolutely. I mean, in terms of like him and his price, you've got an Arsenal 4.5 million midfielder who's going to play right wing. Like the natural instinct is to think absolutely should be all over that. And we've got little doubt that he starts the weekend as it stands. Concerns moving forward wouldn't even be that, oh, he'll come out the team when Saka's back, maybe, or once Martinelli's back as well. It's the blocking you.
Mm.
And it depends on people's circumstance because there's every chance. I think if Crystal Palace reach an FA Cup semi final, there's every chance I'll be using the assistant manager chip on Arteta. So I'm sitting on Gabriel Arteta, and if I got Nwaneri, Saka's now off the table for me for a double game week. But a
that's
point when
true.
he probably is back.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I guess in that situation, you've got to consider Saka just coming back from a long-term injury. Not only will he have his minutes manageable, so what's he going to be like from a kind of explosivity perspective, but also I'm not I wouldn't rule out at all Nwaneri based on kind of his history in the youth team and what we've seen from him this season in terms of him playing himself into a position where he can't be dropped. Like he was kind of already knocking on the door before the injuries that we suffered. And he's got that kind of level of talent, even from the Leicester home game when he had the kind of relatively brief cameo there. You could see how technically gifted he is and how smart he is as well. He's very smart on and off the ball. So there's no saying he couldn't be moved back into a central midfield position in some of the simpler games. Saka could play on the left if that's kind of what Arteta wants to
Oh,
do.
we're beyond that now, aren't we? Come on, that's clutching.
I clutching, but I
Mm.
mean, I don't think people in England were happy to
Gareth
see him
Southgate
shunted
is
at
not
left
managing your
back
football
for
team. Carry
the.
on.
I'm just a bit about that.
I was happy for him to play left back as well. I'll openly admit that.
Yeah, and you and many others would have been wrong there, but yeah, no, Saka probably not going to go to left wing, but I don't think it's impossible to think that Nwaneri could work his way through form into a position where, especially given the kind of lack of spark we've had this season. And even Odegaard, as great as I think he is, hasn't been on his best form. Nwaneri has looked to kind of bring some of that I don't know, the kind of thing that you can't describe, that X factor, to the side when he's played. So I think he could very easily play himself into an undroppable position.
I think for those who want to kind of know they want to wild card quite soon after the blank, again, I don't recommend 30. But if people are looking at 31, 32, I can't really give a good reason not to go and get him and start him and play him this week in your fantasy team, subject to who else you've got. I guess there'll be ones like Rogers has got the double, Clivert and Semenyo got Southampton away. There'll be other good kind of enabling midfielders who aren't that much more expensive that people are already looking at benching headaches this week. Like, if I put this 4.5 million Arsenal kid in, we're going to leave him on the bench every week. We don't want to with the fixture this weekend, but I think for those thinking towards the blank and the doubles, like I might need to prepare a little bit longer. He's possibly going to be a pain in the arse if I get him. That's how I view it.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think for me, it's also like maybe it's just the fact that I've kind of been mulling around 1 million for most of the season, but I'm kind of looking to do something a little bit different. And it's like he's an exciting player to watch. I think if you buy him, like the game is supposed to be fun. It very rarely is, but like if you buy him, you're going to enjoy having him in your team, I think.
Not if he blocks me from getting Saka or Arteta for a double game week. He's not, mate. That's
No, that's true. That's true.
kind of the point. What Arsenal do you have at the moment, Adam?
At the moment, I've got Timber, Gabriel, and Raya, so I'm having to sell
Oh, so you're going to
Timber
sell
most
one to put
likely.
him in as well?
Yeah, probably.
Wow. Okay. Well, which one's getting cut, mate?
Timber most likely. Mainly because like the goalkeeper spot. I always seem to get it wrong, and I've maybe got it wrong with Raya this season. But I'm kind of happy to just leave him there. And I've got 5 free transfers, so I can kind of afford to make quite a few moves this week. And I've got a little bit of money in the bank as well, so I can afford to be a bit maybe like punty on this one.
So you think you're bringing Nwaneri in?
Yeah.
All right. Good luck. Sam, any Arsenal for you at the moment?
No, I don't have any Arsenal at the moment. I did have I did have double I did have double Arsenal defence, and I recently sold them for double Liverpool defence um, ahead of their double game week or double game. Um, I don't hate it. You know, I could never talk anyone out of bringing Arsenal players into or any players in to play against Leicester. I certainly wouldn't talk you out of it for that. Um, I appreciate what you're saying in terms of the thing. I think it depends how you're set up from a free transfer point of view. I think the fact that he is a midfielder, if you were blessed with loads of free transfers and you did want to bring Saka in at any point, I think you could do Nwaneri for Saka if you could free up the funds with and doing it in a triple transfer or something like that that you were going to do anyway to free in those funds if you did want to make that move down the line. Um, so yeah, I think it's hard, isn't it? At that price point, playing for one of the best sides in the league, and with not much with not much sort of opposition in terms of stealing minutes. It's one of those that it almost feels like a classic, FPL Twitter or Engage Manager thing where we all overlook him for the reasons we're discussing, and someone at work who's looking at their side and goes, oh, he plays for one of the best sides and he's not expensive, but he scores a hat trick at the weekend, and you go, yeah, good point. Why did we worry about something six game
Yeah, it
weeks
goes
away?
both ways though, isn't it? So, I mean, I'm probably likely going to buy Clive, I think, this week. And of course, you look at it, you think, Hang on, 4.5 million Arsenal midfielder should have saves me 1.5 as well. But that can go the other way, doesn't it? I overthink the guy that's already doing really well, and they have amazing fixtures that carries me a little bit
To
longer
be
as
fair, I
well.
haven't been
So
Chris Wood all season, so
yeah, to join the club, mate. Okay, Adam, if someone did want to buy an Arsenal, hang on, I'm going to rephrase that. If someone was wanting to buy an Arsenal offensive player at the moment, does it have to be Nwaneri?
Uh, I mean, you
Or
can buy
can it be
Trossard if
Odegaard
you,
or Trossard's going to get attention here, surely, isn't it?
yeah, you can buy Trossard if you like. And he does have the from like longer term, he's probably more stable in terms of minutes. But I mean, the problem is that the reason he's more stable in terms of minutes, like yeah, I don't see why you would essentially. Like I think if you're going to buy an Arsenal attacker, I think you go for Nwaneri or no one.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. If people want to go defensive, is Gabriel still worth paying you extra?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Unfortunately, Lewis Skelly's listed as a midfielder, which is a bit of a pain. Because he would obviously be a great option, but yeah, no, Gabriel.
Okay, Sam, I've got some Leicester FPL questions. Don't laugh. Wout Fast, best 3.9 in the game.
um, maybe. What is Greaves 3.9 as well?
It might be actually.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I was
maybe
testing you.
not. I think I own Greaves. Although saying that, he ruined my double Liverpool clean sheet as my third bench with his 96th minute goal or whatever he scored. Um, there's no reason you would ever want a Leicester defender in your side unless you're never going to have triple Leicester, so you have a for now playing 3.9 defender. So like I suppose you've got that. I can't remember the last time we scored from a set piece. I think it was Fulham away, so they're not going to do that for you. We don't keep clean sheets, so he's not going to do that for you. He is solely going to get you maybe at most 1 point a game.
Do you think Vestergaard will come back in? Because I thought Collie played quite well at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I would be surprised. Ahead of the Old Trafford game, I would have said that Coley wouldn't start. But I agree with you. I thought he played really well, and he was probably the one I had in mind when I was saying earlier. On Friday night, it felt like there was that fight there, that passion. He was probably the figure that I had in my head. I think celebrating some big tackles or celebrating a block, something like that. And I know that sounds like a bit gimmicky and a bit cliche, but it really felt like that was what we had missed. I, I've got my I'm still unsure on Nicole, but he did have a good game, and I hope that Van Nistelrooy will reward people that have good games. So I'd be surprised if Escott did come back in.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the kind of the arse the height issue. Obviously, Arsenal still a huge threat from set plays in terms of open play or even going direct from say goal kicks and stuff. Like you don't need Vestergaard's massive aerial
Yeah,
frame,
and
and actually having
I
a bit
think
more
you
pace
kind
against
of
a more guile opponent like this feels better to me.
yeah, and I think for neutrals at Sea Vestergaard, I would I would say that is a valid observation of him. The problem is he's not very good at jumping. So despite being quite tall, he's pretty poor in the air. So he doesn't really benefit the fact that he is so tall. I can't really remember him scoring many goals for Leicester. He regularly gets done by big long balls and stuff like that. So yeah, he doesn't really have that going for him, to be honest.
All right. Uh, do you want to attempt to sell Bilal El Kanous as an alternative to Nwaneri?
No, I probably wouldn't. I think he's a phenomenal player. I've been very impressed. I think he's probably our most talented player of the lot. Um, I don't know what clauses are in his contract. Hopefully, ones that benefit us if we do go down. Because I do genuinely think he's a really talented footballer. Um, but I would say that is probably one of those where you're overthinking it if you try and go for that because ultimately he is playing in one of the worst sides in the league. If I take a step back, as good as he is, he's not going to be on any real set pieces really that will probably gain him points. He might take some free kicks where they get crossed in, but if you look at it objectively, you think, what is he actually going to provide you? And I don't think there's enough for me.
Jamie Vardy, still doing it, mate. 11 attacking returns. Are we
Yeah.
right to be overlooking this at the moment? 5.4
Um,
now.
the problem with Jamie Vardy in your side, and this is coming from someone who A had owned him up until this game week, and B is a Leicester fan. Given the Morgan Rogers and if you say Nwaneri, but whoever, a Cliver, there's like a Chris Wood, and I found myself with a lot of times where Vardy became, I benched him at Spurs away. He was my sort of eighth choice
You
attacker.
idiot.
I know, and I
Don't bench
regretted
for
it.
attackers against my team.
Oh no, I know, I regretted it, but my team was that strong. It was. I think it came down to
Should
Vardy
have bench
versus
boosted.
Mbumo, and I think Mbumo scored two, maybe, or he got a goal and an assist. And it turned out that I did make the right decision, but there's so many players in my side that are almost locks. The sort of a Palmer, Salah, Isak, then they're not going anywhere. And Rogers is so difficult to bench at the moment because he seems involved in everything, and a lot of the time I was benching Vardy purely based on the fact that I was probably thinking to myself, the only reason I wouldn't be benching Vardy is because I'm a Leicester fan, because we are that bad. Objectively speaking, like, why would I bench, why would I bench an Mbumo over a Vardy when, in my mind, the only argument I had for starting Vardy was, he sort of takes penalties and he's probably our focal point. But then I thought, well, yeah, but in Mbumo, you've got the same argument, and I was struggling to find any reason to even a João Pedro.
You should have
it was
messaged me, mate. That's what I've got to say.
I know. But even a João Pedro, it's kind of coming back to the same thing. And then I was going, well, neither side is really that good, but Brighton are probably a bit better than Leicester.
They are, unfortunately, okay, I'm not finished with the fantasy questions for Leicester. Okay, game week 29. You're playing Manchester United.
Yeah,
there will be people who free hit in that week. Should they be attacking Manchester United players for that 1 week specifically?
I think I probably wouldn't. The reason being, I don't know how many when I free hit in a season, I look to players that, and this is very fantasy speaking, but I look to players and think, is there a player that can score me a hat trick? And I look to try and maximise it as much as possible. I'd be looking at defenders that, in my head, I'm thinking, I want a defender that's got a chance of keeping a clean sheet, but also might score, because with a free hit, I'm not looking at someone who might score me 6 points. I'm looking at someone who might get me 15, and that probably backfires on the most part. They all blank. But would I be looking at Leicester side and going, there's a player there that might score a hat trick, and other than maybe Vardy, and two of them would maybe have to be penalties or something like that.
I mean, Manchester United players, mate.
Oh,
should we be going like Dallo, Fernandes, Diallo? If free hitting in 29.
Maybe.
He's like, oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
He's changed his confidence here, Adam.
No, sorry. I thought you were saying to bring it. Yeah, and see, that's kind of on what I was saying. You've got a Dallo that all of a sudden you could get a clean sheet and an assist, and all of a sudden he comes away with 12 points. Bruno again, and I owned Bruno when Diallo scored the hat trick, so I couldn't not say Diallo as well. I think for sure that would be what I would be looking at, and trying to maximise players that have the ability to score double-digit thingies. And I think anyone who's playing against Leicester, and best believe we've get some this season. Was it Sharda got a hat trick against us for Brentford? And there's been plenty of players that We call it. I imagine most clubs have it, but let's call it the Benteke Trophy. And it's just there will always be someone random who hasn't scored all
Oh, I
season,
see. I
and then
could go like that.
Against Leicester, they score. And I think Savino got his first goal for Leicester for Man City against us. And every week there is always one. I think it was Beto for Everton. You could go through all of our fixtures this
Oh,
season.
Beto, don't get me started.
No,
Clayton won't shut up about him. Bad boy, birthday boy, Beto. You won't shut up about him.
yeah, but that is honestly what we're working with. That is what we give sides.
Yeah, that's a yeah. Bringing Beto up is a good summary. Adam, should people be treble Arsenal if they're free hit in 29? Chelsea out.
Uh, tr- I might end up there. Well, I will be there probably because this week I'll still have three Arsenal players. Probably not. No. I think that time of the season's probably passed, especially until we get a more settled squad with the players that come back. I think it's probably time to move
Do,
away from that for most
do you
people.
think those who free hit in 29 will go without Palmer, even though he's playing and Salah and Isak don't have a fixture? I think you probably
Um,
do, don't you?
it
You'd go Fernandez over Palmer on that one specific week, wouldn't you, for example?
well, it depends how heavy you want to go into City as well. I guess like if you want to look at all of their premium options.
It's still going to be easy enough, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Money won't be
likely.
a problem, surely.
Again, I don't think people will do this, but hypothetically, if you get Haaland, KDB, and Foden, if you want to go that expensive, I don't think many people will. There's a potential if people want to stick with an Arsenal defender, they might not have the budget, but yeah, I think I probably. It's a tough call. It's a tough call, to be honest.
Yeah, I think most free hitters will go without Palmer, but I don't know if to might get the kind of fear as and when it comes round. But
Mm.
if you're going to go free hit, I mean, my view on it would always be go all in. So if I'm attacking the Arsenal Chelsea fixture, I'm attacking Arsenal players. If it's Leicester Man United, I'm attacking Man United players and so on. There is one Leicester asset that I think really, really will appeal though, Sam. Rude. Game week 26, Arne slot. Those on Arne slot, maybe those on Unai Emery are looking to move it on. You might be one of the few that's potentially in for a bonus game. Game week 26, home to Brentford. What are you saying to someone who says, "What about Rude, mate? Do you think you beat Brentford?"
I, as someone who I think I will try and with my assistant manager, I'll probably try and have a bit of fun with it and really go after all those sort of bonus points that they have on offer. So I would probably be telling people if they were asking me that, I would be saying, you know, do I think that we'll beat Brentford? Probably not, but is it a risk that I'd be willing to take? I'd say it probably is. Because I think the ceiling of it is quite high. And eventually we've got to start winning some games, and you'd have to sort of look at the games that you play at home. And Brentford are a sort of side that
They're beatable.
can get beat in those sort of games. Yeah. Um, very similar to when we beat West Ham at home. It's sort of a similar impact. So I wouldn't talk anyone off it purely for the fact that I think there's a lot of upside and not a huge amount of downside.
Well, that's just rude, mate. Yeah, I don't mind that. He's the one I keep mentioning for 26, saying if people are going to keep chasing the bonus, and obviously we're not talking about activating it for Van Nistelrooy, we're talking about people already
No,
on
yeah,
it, and then they're looking to move for 26. Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. So Sam said it's all right. Gentlemen, top stuff. Thank you both very much. Let's do correct score predictions before we finish. Sam,
do you want a realistic one or do you want
give me both if you want.
2-1 Leicester? And
Hopefully that's
that
the
was a
realistic
realistic
one.
one. Yeah, yeah. 2-1 Leicester, and then the realistic one will probably be 3-1 Arsenal.
Adam,
I will go 2-0 to Arsenal.
So 2 goal victories realistically, both of you. That feels about right. Yeah. I don't know if you've got it in you, Adam, to like you had games this time last year where you scored a couple early and you had some massive away wins, didn't you? Like Sheffield United, West Ham and stuff. I don't know if you've got it in you to be putting 5 or 6 on the board if that situation arises. And would you even want to? What I mean by that is it's not like you've got a huge ability to rotate at the moment, so you just save the legs.
Yeah, yeah, no, I was gonna say any other time, kind of the position that Leicester in, you would think 4-5 nil potentially, but yeah, no, I can't really see that.
I think it might be ugly. I think you'll win, obviously, Adam, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 2-1.
I
I
could see
wouldn't be
I could see us
surprised.
kind of like not scoring in the first half and kind of Arsenal fans getting a little bit worried where is it going to be another game where we kind of dominate, but it's a bit stale. But yeah, no, we should win.
I think it might be similar to when we played Man City. And
You
I
played
think
well.
we will. Yeah, yeah. I do think we will probably come out and play reasonably well. I just think we'll struggle to really have any bite, and eventually we probably through individual errors will allow Arsenal into the game, and they'll go 1-0 up, and then 2-0 up, we might get one, and then they get a third chase, and something like that. But yeah, I would expect us to put on a performance similar to Friday night, where I thought we started really well, and then we just slowly faded out of the game, and that has been the case for the most part.
Yeah, again, game went away a bit, I think, when Ndidi came off on that as well.
Yeah,
Okay, good stuff. Anything you want to plug before we finish, Sam?
no, 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 just this show.
Good man. And for you, Adam?
I would plug my socials, but I'm not really on there anymore. So yeah, I'll
No,
plug the show as well. Why
no,
not?
no. You want to plug Blue Sky? No.
Sure, I can do. I don't even know what my handle is, but it's probably 35 who.
It's what it's always been,
Got to
Adam.
keep on
So,
brand. Got to
yeah,
keep on brand.
absolutely that. Good stuff. Thank you, gentlemen. Sam, top debut. Well done, mate. Ask James stream tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. is the scheduled time. That might change. If it does, it won't be much later. Clash of Correspondents next week, I can tell you, is Fulham versus Crystal Palace with Lewis James and Rory McLaughlin Dow. Just leaves me to say thanks so much to Sam and Adam. Good luck, gentlemen. Cue music, please, man child.